with friends like these who needs leftists, which you know who I'm talking about. It's David French. It's the blue Republicans, which I'm very, very tired of, and they keep constantly voting for those things that the Democrats want. Why?
Well, there's a big issue. There's the big overarching issue, and then there's the specifics, and the specific things that they vote for or support. I mean, the last big thing that was a really beautiful, almost pitch perfect dividing line between them was DeSantis putting pressure on Disney.
Yeah.
All of the folks who were, at the end of the day, they were not on the right. They were actually right liberals.
Mm-hmm.
They went crazy.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, this is not not the place of the government to do this, blah blah blah. So at the end of the day, they're not bad people in the sense that they do not understand the importance of a civilization and family and wholesomeness and all the things that we want. But at the end of the day, they're resigned to the fact that culture is always in decline, and their attachment is, their imperative is not, hey, we have to pass laws or do things, strong things sometimes in order to fix these things, in order to maintain our civilization. They see it as, well, it's kind of over. We're going to keep our hands off, make sure that the machinery of the way government works, is perfectly pristine. And if we lose the civilization, we lose the civilization. But at least we're very happy with ourselves that we didn't violate our own moral code.
Yeah. And and I think the problem with this is the very philosophy that they are laboring under is deeply confused about what it should be. And this, in fact, goes to a contemplations episode that Josh and Thomas did on Lotus.com, talking about, well, what is the problem with Western philosophy? And there is a lot wrong with Western philosophy, unfortunately, because it, like we were discussing earlier, it comes from the presupposition that there is a universal man, that we can create a doctrine that will apply to all universally, and that's simply not true. And so the other problem that they cover is the fact that it's not become about finding truth. It's become about industrial production and a kind of propagating machine, because people's entire careers are now academic. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do to justify your position, if not continue to pump out just nonsense, even if it's obviously nonsense? So if you'd like to support us, you can go to Lotus.com and check that out. But I wanted to talk about David French. I don't like David French.
Few do.
He used to be a Republican until Trump.
Yes, he was. He was one of these people who were broken. Well, no. Yes, he used to be a Republican, in fact. But what Trump has exposed, and no, you know what? I don't want to even say that, because that puts the onus on us. I'm going to say the fulfillment of the leftist project, the conclusion of the Long March, what that has revealed is that it's revealed all these little cleavages within what used to be the right. Yeah.
And David French is one of those people who is closest to the left. And his entire argument, say, in this Atlantic article, which we'll go through because I think it's fascinating, is essentially the right should do nothing to prevent the long march of the left.
Yes.
It's essentially, it's like, David French is like chloroform for the right. He's just like, just breathe it in and go to sleep, and let the people around you do what they're doing. And it's awful, right? So he begins by whining about the anti-grooming bill in Florida. Now, I can't see how anyone on the right or even the center-left could complain about the anti-grooming bill. It seems to be only radical progressives who complain about it. And he says this: the American right has lost the plot on free speech. The passage of Florida's House Bill 1557, which bans classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade in a manner that isn't age inappropriate or developmentally appropriate in all grades, is merely the latest in a string of what free speech advocacy organization PEN America has called educational gag orders. Sorry, if we can't pervert your children, we're being gagged.
Well, David French famously called drag queen story hour one of the blessings of liberty, and it's very consistent. Oh yeah,
Did he?
he's known. Oh yeah,
I did not know
it's a meme now. Yeah, because there were I think I think it was Chris Rufo was highlighting how in some schools they have drag queen story hour,
Yeah.
and he said no, it's actually a blessing of liberty.
Okay, well, that's your opinion, David French.
Yes,
It's disgusting.
So I mean, I have yet to see French tackle seriously about the problem of what happens when you have, I mean, when the left runs wild,
Yeah.
With the sexualization of children and all these things. I mean, okay, what are you going to do?
Well, I mean, he literally is arguing that the Republicans should do
Yes, nothing.
and that the left, they should allow the left to control morality. And if he thinks that Drag Queen Story Hour is one of the blessings of liberty, well, then you can see exactly how he's arrived at this point, right?
Yes.
Listen to this. As the Republican Party evolves from a party focused on individual liberty and the limits on government power to a party that more fully embraces government control of the economy and morality, which is a fascinating statement, it is reversing many of its previous stances on free speech in public universities, in public education, and private corporations. Driven by a combination of partisan animosity and public fear, it is embracing the tactics it once opposed. So if you think that it's wrong to pervert children, right, to sexualize kindergartners, then you are against free speech. I don't think that's a free speech issue. I think that's a propriety issue. And it could go either way. If they were, say, in kindergarten, getting them to Heil Hitler and do the Nazi salute, I wouldn't be like, oh, you're going to allow them to do that? Because otherwise it'd be a violation of their free speech. That would be ridiculous.
Right. Well, the only ground... one reason we on the right in the U.S. hate David French is because
one of my 95 theses.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I tried not to spend so much time thinking about these people. I wrote a piece called "Stop Yelling Stop" on my Substack, where I was just like, let's just move on from this because they're not worthy. They're not worthy or serious interlocutors.
They're not going to be persuaded either.
They're not going to be persuaded, and with all of them in common is. They're sneaking around on issue by issue, trying to find a way to short circuit the things that the right wants.
Yes, and David French has completely fallen into this trap. If I can't teach disgusting adult material to your children, then you're against free speech. This is not a free speech issue. The government is not preventing leftists from being degenerate leftists in their private lives. That's the free speech issue. If the government was saying you can't have pink news or something, we're going to ban that. If you're not going to be able to have your pride parades or whatever it is, they would be free speech issues, sure. But the education of children, this is not a free speech issue. This is about what is appropriate for children, and adult content isn't.
And also in there is which is kind of the other slippery thing that they do, which is that they're fine with censorship in all but name.
Yes.
As long as the government is not doing it, it's fine. You can be run out of house and home. You can have anything horrible happen to you. You could be banned from Twitter because it's a private, private corporation is something that they love to do. But notice, thankfully you probably haven't spent as much time on David French as many of us have, but constantly when it comes to someone on the right getting canceled. They are always
for it.
They're always for it.
Yeah.
They're saying it's private corporate, right?
Yeah. But the point there, the government control of the economy and morality. It's like, well, the left is always demanding government control of morality. This is what hate speech law is.
Right. Well, it is what the left is.
Exactly.
It's a proposition for a moral program. Right?
Exactly. And so if one side is prepared to enact a moral agenda and David French sleeps, and then the Republicans are like, maybe we should protect the innocence of children, David French, how dare you, sir?
Right.
Are you going to prevent Drag Queen Story Hour? Who's going to win?
Yeah.
Which side advances and which side recedes?
So French is also, French has a kind of weird, I think, with a lot of these people, I think we miss the mark when we deal with them exclusively in political or ideological terms. I think for a lot of these people, yes, they have been broken, and there's a weird psychosexual element. There's a weird personality disorder thing.
Yeah.
It's clear when we see folks on the left, we're saying, no, this isn't radical politics. It's radical politics married to you're completely out of your mind.
Yeah, it's a radical personal preference. That
Yes.
You have. Yeah.
So with David French, David French loves to be attacked because he has a martyr complex.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
he
Like I
loves
said, I'm
it.
not an expert on it.
Yeah, yeah. So you would
Glad
see,
you're here.
on Twitter. Not only that, count the number of articles he and his wife have written that boil down to Twitter's being mad to me. People on Twitter are being mad at me. They're saying ugly things. They're doing this. He was. I mean, do people do say ugly things on Twitter to everyone? That's the nature of the thing.
That's why it was fun.
But every time it happens, he feels like he needs to. I mean, 2016 was like the height, where he probably wrote 4 or 5 articles about all the hate he gets, and it empowers him. And so all of this stuff is personal. He hates the right because he feels attacked, and the more that they attack him, the more he takes positions like this, which just go around the wheel.
So he can't see the difference, though, between what he describes, how he was the president of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, which I just want to be clear, I fully support. I think it's an excellent foundation. Mm-hmm. Back in 2016, 2017, they were doing great work against the censorious cultural revolutionaries of the left on college campuses. Mm-hmm. But this is not the same as indoctrinating children into a particular ideology. This is very, very different. And for some reason, David is incapable of drawing this distinction. He says, when I was the president of FIRE, we launched a project that evaluated speech policies at hundreds of colleges and universities. At the same time, conservative activists attempted to pass legislation that would open up the campuses to free expression. The combination of litigation and legislation proved remarkably successful, which means, in David's mind, that we must teach children leftism and perversion in the name of free speech.
Yes.
He literally links these two things. It turns out that all too many Republicans want to maximize their own freedom and minimize their opponents. Why? For many of the same reasons advanced by the architects of campus speech codes. Some ideas are allegedly too dangerous to be shared.
Right. Well, the other part of this, which is interesting, is that what is his solution to some of this stuff? Oh, fight in the courts. As if the legal system in America, as if the judicial system in America has not been completely, corrupted, as if we haven't had years of, let's say, Obama judges, Biden judges, who do not care about the law.
You did just get Roe versus Wade overturned, so maybe there's hope.
Right. Well, I mean, we'll see about that, but I mean, for a litigator to say, hey, just if let's take things to court, I mean, that's an answer.
But moreover, why should it be decided by the courts when, say, Florida parents are like, I don't want you trying to pervert my children?
That's exactly
I
right.
need a legal verdict on that. So I thought you were for democracy.
Do citizens have the right to make these decisions, to make moral decisions? Clearly, the left has that right. Clearly, we do not in David French's eyes.
Well, exactly, isn't it? That's exactly it. The repressive tolerance is always extended to the left, but not to the right. But notice what he's doing here. He's saying, it's for the same reasons that the campus speech codes were put in place, that the children in Florida universities aren't to be taught that white people are evil. Right? And he says, these are the same things. Like, okay, but you're not dealing with the same people, David, right? When someone goes to university, they are a legal adult. How old's a kindergartner? 5? Why would you consider, and this is where David's philosophical confusion really comes into play, because he is treating a 5-year-old as the equivalent of an adult. He is saying the free speech has to be extended to the left so they can teach radical ideas that the 5-year-old can't challenge.
Why? Because for him, he cares about the rights of the teacher. The voters care about the child.
Exactly.
The child never enters into it from French's point of view.
And you'll notice there, though, but what rights does the teacher have in teaching what the child will learn?
0.
Exactly. None. This is not a free speech issue. The teacher can stop being a teacher or go in their private time, say whatever they want to whoever they will listen. Yes. But they don't have it's my free speech right to be paid by the state, meaning the tax-paying parents, to indoctrinate their children into anti-white racism or weird sexual deviancy. But that's not a right. That's not a free speech right. And yet David French has completely married the two, being like, look, you don't want gangs of communists attacking you on college campuses? Oh, you must be in favor of drag queen story hour then.
Right.
It's like, no, David.
Well, this is things like this, when you see French doing this kind of thing, and then when you see politicians who are stupid, who are GOP politicians, who kind of are persuaded by this argument, I think it's to the good, because we're separating. we're now we're identifying the people who cannot be counted on.
Oh yeah, and those people who are essentially married to the left, where even if they haven't got the bravery to admit it, because what David French is saying here, I mean, like, look at this next this next quote's fascinating, right? Educational gag orders represent only a part of the right-wing censorship wave. So that's not censorship to say that children can't be taught a certain thing, right? It's not censorship, right? But anyway, apparently, PEN America issued a report detailing 1,586 instances of individual books being banned, affecting 1,145 unique book titles. Now, look at that framing. Books being banned. You think, oh my God, that means no one in Florida can read a copy of Abraham X. Kendi's Anti-Racist Baby. No, not banned, just not present in the classroom. And by this logic, right, if some teachers in Florida were like, yeah, okay, so we're going to just start reading from Mein Kampf today, 5-year-old kindergartners, David French would be like, listen, you're not going to be a censor, are you? You're not going to stop them from literally reading out Hitler in this class.
Oh, no, but he would.
Exactly.
You know he would.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly. You know exactly that he would. He would be like, how could you allow this teacher to indoctrinate children into Nazism? So yeah, that's a great question, isn't it, David? And why doesn't it go the other way into communism? Anyway, so he is complaining that this is censorship. This is not censorship. Curating what schools have in their texts is not a form of censorship. And basically he ends with, look, if leftists can't groom kids, we're Nazis. That's literally
Right.
where he's coming from here, right? He ends up the question of the term groomer, of course, is one thing
that pisses them off.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good because it's true.
It's true.
It's absolutely true, and they know it's on the money. And so he says, look, censorship is inconsistent with American pluralism. Speech codes and book bans undermine one of the core purposes of American education, or to groom children. I don't think that's what the core purpose is, David. He's lost, basically. And he has thoughts.
It's, this type of thing is so soy.
Yes.
And ridiculous. I mean, I have a thing where I say it's, you need to know what time it is.
Yeah.
It's very far, outside of where we're at in terms of time. But a hopeful point is the venue. He used to be a writer at National Review. He got run out of National Review because the donors revolted.
Oh, really?
And said, this is ridiculous. Why is this guy constantly crapping on our readers every column? So he ran to The Atlantic, which The Atlantic is one of the venerable left wing. It's completely radicalized, completely far left at this point.
I've seen some ridiculous takes.
Yeah, right, ridiculous. But that's where he has found his home.
Do you know,
which is significant? That and the Dispatch.
Yeah, in 2017, I was in Los Angeles visiting some people, and I was at a house party with Tim Pool, Luke Rudowski, and Lauren Southern, and there was an Atlantic journalist there, and he must have thought I was a Nazi, right? Because he introduced himself saying, "By the way, I'm Jewish," and I was like, "Okay, that's weird." And then he like I said, he thought I was a Nazi, and so that's how he's presenting himself. I was like, "Look, I'm a liberal, and now I'm a liberal conservative, but like your publication is BS and produces ridiculous stuff." And he's like, no, we don't. And so I just got this article that was an article about there was a solar eclipse or something, and the progress of the sun was going across a bunch of states, and they tied that to racism in the solar eclipse. And he was, so I can't believe you published that. It's like, yeah, but you did.
Yeah, but right.
You did. That's what your publication
And there are
is like.
15 more that I can find if you give me 10 minutes.
This was just the most recent. Oh my God, it struck to me. But anyway, I don't want to dwell too much longer on David French. But the thing I think is interesting is his response to the Buffalo shooting. Now, obviously a tragedy. If we can go to the tweet, this is a fascinating and very, very revealing statement. He says, each person who possesses a public platform should be keenly aware that our ideas are amplified and intensified at every stage of downstream engagement. We may not be directly responsible for the actions of others, but we are responsible for our influence. How is that not the left-wing position that leads to censorship? If you say, I'm not for censorship, but, then you're for censorship, David.
Sure. And would he make this argument about
any of the left-wing
any of the left-wing, right? Or even the grooming stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's like, look, I'm not necessarily against drag drag queen story hour.
But these guys take it to some ridiculous
and then you've got the Loudoun County, the trans rapist in the bathroom and things like this. And it's like, look, are you going to accredit any of that to the trans activism that goes on in the mainstream media all day, every day?
Right. Well, these guys got very, excited sexually when this Buffalo thing happened, which is,
they're thrilled.
Right. Yeah. And you never read that the perpetrator was a legitimate head case.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter. And even if he was like, the Christchurch guy, where it's not like he's got a history of mental illness, he's an ideologue, right?
Right.
Okay, let's assume that that's the case, but that doesn't matter because I can't think of a movement that doesn't have a mass shooter at this point.
Yes.
There was a furry Antifa mass shooter. In fact, there have been two trans mass shooters. Like there's been free speech mass shooters. There's a mass shooter for everything because the mass shooting appears to be
there was a vegan YouTuber.
Yes.
Iranian shooter.
Who attacked YouTube.
Yes. I mean, if that's not a politics, I don't know what is.
I'm not going to say anything more about that because she got demonetized. That's why she did it.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible. But anyway, the point is, like, I think that the mass shooting phenomenon is just a characteristic of American culture, unfortunately. And it's one of those things where it's because people get siloed in online conditions and then repeatedly see the same narrative over and over and over. And eventually it's like, look, there's only one thing I can do, go and do something terrible. And there's one for each faction. Each political faction. Yeah. And so there's no point trying to make political hay, saying, oh, look, your ideology leads to a shooting. So, yeah, but yours does too. And theirs does. And theirs does. Mm-hmm. So it's not about the ideologies themselves. It's about a lack of a commitment to the democratic process, which necessitates free speech, which is what you guys are all against.
Right. Well, if he can take a cheap shot against the right, he will take it. In fact, every Sunday on his in his Sunday piece, he takes a shot at American evangelicals.
Of course he does.
Every single Sunday. Not on Tuesday or whatever, but on Sunday. Now,
of course he does.
Now, I'm not a Christian, but I am upset and insulted on behalf of my Christian friends when I see that. I'm like, man, this guy is... But he's doing it because he knows that he's in a weird relationship with the amount of hatred that he gets. Yeah. Every time he can poke the bear, he takes the chance.
And the only support he's going to get is from people who are on the left.
Right.
He's not going to get any support. Yeah, he's not going to get any support from conservatives.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this one between Thomas and Josh on what is wrong with Western philosophy. And if you want to follow Josh, you can follow him on Getter at @Josh_firm on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.